Oh hey, welcome to the video. Thanks for clicking. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you take a regular slab of pine and turn it into a sofa, arm, chair, table, flexible thingy. Let me show you what I mean. Cue the intro. So if your sofa setup's anything like mine, I have a side table over there, nothing on this side. So if I have a drink, well, that means I have to put it on the ground where my kids can knock it over. Or I have to put it on the coffee table, which is its intended purpose. But I suggest you make one of these anyway. Just slips over the sofa arm, just like that. Has a little integrated cup holder if you really want to make one. I'll show you how to do that. And it's wide enough that if you have your own coasters, you can just slap that in there. Also a little table area for your cell phone, book, whatever. So how about we get back to the shop and I'll show you how to build this thing. But first, coffee. Oh yeah. Okay, let's go. Alright, let's build this thing. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fire off just a few things that you're going to need to build it. First up is going to be this piece of pine. This is 1 by 10 and it's 19 inches long. The final product is going to be 18 inches long, but you got to take into consideration the thickness of your blade. With all the cuts that we're doing, the blade is going to take off about an inch worth of material, so just keep that in mind. The bread and butter, the thing that's holding this whole thing together, is nylon strap. This is a roll I got off of Amazon for fairly cheap, I think 15 bucks for, I don't know, a dozen feet or so. That's the high quality stuff, but if you're on a budget, dollar store leash, $1.50. This is 48 inches long, plenty long enough for what we're going to be doing here. And my first one was built with a dog leash, so it's still going strong today. So that's another option for you. In order to hold the nylon in place on top of the wood, I'm going to be using two things. The first one is glue. I'm going to be using a spray adhesive here for this project. This is Gorilla Spray Adhesive, heavy duty. But you can also go and buy whatever other glue that you can afford. There's some epoxy and some super glue at dollar stores as well. And you're going to notice that there's a theme here that I do like to buy a lot of my materials from dollar stores. The second part is we're going to be using staples. Staples is kind of like a backup to the glue, just to reinforce it and make sure that nothing comes apart because it is flexible. I always overbuild things, so staples. I'm going to be using a light-duty 8mm or 5/16 inch type staples to put these on. And then for the final layer, you're going to notice this black mat. This black mat is what's going to protect your furniture and keep it from sliding off. So on there right now is a Duramax anti-slip shelf liner. 18 inches, 4 feet for $3.50. A more common option, common and easier to find, is the same kind of thing. It's drawer liner, but it's got all the holes in it. This is for $2.50, and it's 18 inches for 50 inches. Another option is you can use an old yoga mat that you're not using anymore. Cut it up, glue it on. You're also going to either want to stain or paint your sofa table. In this project, I'm going to be using the Minwax Classic Gray. Good stuff. And finally, the last thing I'm going to apply is some spray polyurethane. If you're interested in making this cup hold area, I use my router to cut this out. I use a Milescraft 1/8 inch spiral bit. at a 1/8 inch depth. You don't have to have this. It's a nice to have. If you have a router, feel free to do it. Now, one thing I do recommend doing is rounding over your edges. You don't want this sharp edge, so you want to soften it up. You don't want splinters coming off of this thing. What I did with this particular table is I just used my Orwood sander. I just rounded off the edges a little bit. But I'm going to be extra careful with this one because this is going to someone who has a toddler and a newborn. So I'm going to use my router table and round over the edges so they're nice and smooth to be 100% sure that there's going to be no splinters to come off this thing. So I'm going to do that right now. Alright, now we're getting down to the fun, where I can set my stop block at 1.5 inches. And this is where you're going to start making some cuts. So on one side of the board, you're going to make 4.5 inch cuts. After you're done that, flip the board over and do 4 more 1.5 inch cuts. Then when you put the pieces back together, make sure that the grains line up. That way it's nice and seamless. Alright, so once you have everything cut out, my 1.5 inch pieces, 4 of them, you're going to be left with a 6-inch slab here, which is going to be the middle. This is where you can get a little bit creative. You can put in a cup holder, you can put in some kind of slot for your cell phone, but for now we're just going to do what I did here. That's what the individual wants out of this one, so that's exactly what I'm going to find the middle here. So it's a 6-inch piece. So we're going to divide it by 2. How far down is this one? This is 1 inch, 1 and 3/4. 1.5 inch down. So 1.5 inch down from here is where the end of my circle is going to be. That, and then I have my compass here. This is about 4 inches, I believe. We'll set that right to 4. There we go. Set the middle, and we'll start drawing a circle. Look at that! A nice, perfect circle. Yeah, so now I'm going to use my router to cut this out, and then once that's done, I'm going to sand down each individual piece. Make sure that there's no splinters that are going to come out of this thing. This is the mildly tedious and really uninteresting part, and this is where you sand everything down. I'm going to be using my DeWalt Random Orbit sander. I'm going to sand down all the edges, make sure everything is nice and smooth, that there's going to be no splinters, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to sand the inside of this very imperfect circle. Alright, to sand this thing down, you have a couple options available to you. Right now I'm going to be using my rotary tool. It's the cheapest one you can get. This is from Power Fist. I got it from Princess Auto here in Canada. It's all I need, and it comes with the flexible and this spinning sandpaper hook and loop from wish.com. I'll leave a link for it in the description below if you're interested in it. I think it's pretty useful, just for stuff like this, because if you can see how rough that looks. Yeah, see all those markings from the router bit. I want to smooth all that out and make it look nice and smooth. But, okay, how many seconds is that? Is that 10? Look at the difference. 10 seconds with that thing and it's nice and smooth. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is stain it. I'm going to be using Minwax Wood Finish Penetrating Stain Classic Gray. Really mix this stuff up good because the pigment settles at the bottom like it's a job. More than any other stain I've ever used. Food for thought. So here it looks now, freshly stained. Gonna let that dry for a bit. And then once that's dry, we're gonna start putting this sucker together. The fun part. Alright, I've let the stain dry for a little while and now I'm back. And now I'm going to be putting on my nylon webbing. Now I'm gonna be using this nylon webbing. I got it off of Amazon for 15 bucks. I think it's 15 feet or so. It's some high quality stuff. If you don't want to go ahead and purchase something like that, because I make quite a few of these for friends, family members, whoever else wants one. My very first one I made, just to see if it would hold up, was I got a couple of these dog leashes off of for $1.50 at my local dollar store. And these work fantastic. You can, like I said in the beginning of the video, you can save these for whatever or something else. You just literally take this apart and cut it to size. And do exactly what I'm doing now. So I'll set this aside. And time to do some measurements. Exactly 18 inches. Now, if you remember, this was 19 inches, but you have to take into consideration the thickness of the blade. 19 inches rather than 18 inches right off the bat. So that's where we're at right now, is 18 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out my nylon webbing just shy of the end. I don't want anything sticking out. Take my rusty old barbecue lighter. That is not going to work with me today. There we go. And just burn the end a little bit so it doesn't fray. So now we have the bottom piece. Singe down this part. Then do the same for the middle and then the top. Okay, this is the part where you only get one chance and one chance only to do this right. So, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that all your wood is lined up perfectly, or as perfect as you can, before you glue your strips on. Now that they're nice and level, they're going to get. Then what you're going to do is you're going to spray your 3 pieces of webbing, spray a line wherever you're gonna place them, and then we're gonna staple them into place as kind of a backup. Right now I'm gonna be using Gorilla spray adhesive. I've had pretty good luck with this in the past. Bonds to wood, metal, fabric, foam, and plastic, paper, glass, leather, and more. Extreme danger, very flammable, contents under pressure. So you know it's good stuff. Anyway, here we go. Don't be shy with the glue. Just make sure that you lay some paper towel down or whatever to protect your work environment there, so you don't make everything sticky. I'm just gonna put a healthy amount of spray on this. And then we're gonna put a line at the top. Bottom. And line down more or less whatever's the middle. Doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to hold the wood together. Okay, now the instructions say, let's see, for maximum bond strength, spray both surfaces to be joined, allowed to dry to tack for approximately 1 minute. Alright, it's been approximately a minute. So here I go. Don't screw up, Pat. Don't screw up. Don't screw up. Oh no. Number 2, it's tacky, just really like it. So just like that. Extend. Just like that. Cool. And last one. Some tackies. There we go. Now this alone should hold it together. I don't trust just one way of, I just don't trust this one chemical to do its job. So I like to do 2, which is going to be some staples. So hang tight. Okay, so the way I'm going to staple this is I'm going to staple at the end of every cut piece. That way when you bend it, it's going to, the staple is going to help stick it down rather than one in the middle, which is going to pull the adhesive and kind of weaken it over time. So I'll show you what I mean. So one staple on one end of the board, staple at the other end of the board. Do that all the way down. Get here, you can do one end of the board, and then maybe one in the middle. It really doesn't matter nearly as much as the smaller pieces, because the smaller pieces are what at higher risk of. So for that. Alright, so once you're done, you'll notice that maybe there's a staple or two that didn't quite go in. No big deal. Just take a hammer and just tap them in. And they might have popped out a few times. I don't know. But this is what we got. A working, functional sofa armchair table thingy. Wow. Okay. Now, once you're done this, you can go straight to, like once you're satisfied with how this turned out, you can go ahead and go straight to gluing your last piece of material on. So we're going to do that right now. Alright, for the last piece, we're going to put on my shelf liner, which is going to protect the board as well as the furniture that you're going to put this on. This happens to be a Duramax, see if you can see this, Duramax anti-slip shelf liner. What we're going to do is we're just going to line this up. I'm probably going to level this off with the scissors. And yeah, so I'm just going to cut this up, and then we're going to glue this thing on. Alright, now that I've cut this thing to size, we're going to use the same Gorilla spray adhesive to glue this thing on. I used the same thing on the back of this. It's all dusty now, but it seems to work pretty well. The edges are the trickier part, but it seems to be holding up just well. It's been a couple weeks. Anyway, I haven't had any issues. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray the back of this thing, and then lay it down. And then I'm going to weigh it down. I'm going to make sure I get the corners real good. Okay, we'll leave that for a minute, then we'll tack this thing on and weigh it down. Alright, so it's been a minute, so let's put this thing on. Yeah, that's better. Alright. Okay. Stuff's kind of tricky to deal with. Make sure it's nice and level. The ridge here that I don't quite get, which is fine as long as there's no staples coming out of it. Put it down. And I'm going to help you with 10-pound plates. Way down the edges. Nothing too sexy here. You just shake up your can of polyurethane, spray on a couple even coats, and let her dry. You're done. And there you have it, everyone. A nice, fresh sofa arm table. If you like this video, leave a comment down below, leave a like, subscribe, and let me know what you liked, didn't like, and I'll see you in the next video.